Welcome. We're going to talk about solving systems of linear equations. We have three goals. We want to translate words to symbols in equations, visualize the solution, and solve a problem. So the first situation that we're looking at is suppose that an investor puts money into two accounts A and B. A pays 5% and B pays 7% per year. For tax purposes, his earned interest should be $500. So suppose our question is how much should he put into each account? Well, let's set up some variables here. So the first thing we'll do is we'll let I'll just call it A. I'll just use little a. Let that represent the money into account A. And let little b equal money into account B. Okay, so we want to ensure that the amount of interest that is earned is $500. Well, how do you get the total interest for how much you put into A and how much you put into B? Well, if I put $8 into account, let's just say that that's $100, then at the end of the year, that's going to earn 5%. So just the interest portion alone would end up being $5 in this case. Well, I don't know how much I'm going to put in A yet. That's something we may want to determine later on. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, well, 0.05 times whatever A is will represent the amount of interest earned. So this is interest. Plus, I'm also going to earn interest from account B, and the interest there is going to be 7%, so that's going to be 0.07 times B. And I want the sum of the interest from account A and the interest from account B. I want that to total $500. Now, why didn't I use 1.05 and 1.07? Well, if I did the 1, remember that means I'm also including how much I invest plus the interest. And I don't know how much I'm going to invest. So I just know the interest portion should tally up to $500. So there's our equation, converting the words into symbols, really important aspect of solving systems. Now let's take a look at some variants of this, because these tend to be tricky for a lot of people. So the amount of money he puts into A should be half as much as what he puts into B. Oh gosh, so is it 1/2 A equals B or 1/2 B equals A? That's the first thing I think a lot of people begin to think about. Well, how much he puts into A is going to be less than what he puts into B, because what he puts into A is going to be half as much as what he puts into B. So let me give myself some examples here. So let's just suppose that I put in $100 into B. Well, A is going to be half that, so it's going to be 50. If it were 200 here, then it would be half that, which is 100 here. So the question is, how do I get A from B or B from A? Well, A is equal to taking B and halving it, or dividing it by 2 or multiplying it by 1/2. Alternatively, now that you have an example and you're convinced by this, what you can actually do is say, well, I actually am seeing that to get B, I have to double A. And you're absolutely right. Either one of these is the same thing, because if I take this equation and multiply both sides by 2, I get B equals 2A. So I'm going to stick with this one. I like to avoid fractions whenever possible. This makes life a little bit easier. So both are accurate. They'll still give you the same answer, but we're going to go with that one. The amount of money he puts into B should be 3 times as what he puts into A. Well, immediately I see that that what he puts into B is going to be a lot higher. It's going to be 3 times what he puts into A. So if I have $100 in A, B is going to be $300. If I put $200 into A, B is going to be $600. So let me try to study a relationship between these two. How do I get one from the other? Well, to get B, I'm going to take A, I'm going to multiply that value by 3. So there's an equation that I could use. Alternatively, you could also say to get A, I'm going to have to take B and divide it by 3, or take 1/3 of B. So those work as well. Now, the next one says the amount of money put into A should be 20% higher than what he puts into B. Okay, so A is going to be 20% higher than what he puts into B. So if he puts $100 into B, he's going to put $120 into A, because what he puts into A is 20% higher than what he puts into B. And we could kind of keep going this way, but well, how do I get one from the other? Well, if I take B and I multiply it by scratch that. To get A, I take